I would like to see him found and confronted. I think he should know the deep and lasting damage that he did to me. I need to know if his life has been affected or if he's sorry for what he did. I need to believe that there is some form of justice operating in this world.
He was such a nice boy.
She shouldn't have invited the guy in the first place.
We didn't know whether to blame Laura.
It's not just the ugly, funny-looking person that's going to rape.
Her face, I just saw her broken. I think that women raped are treated worst by the people that they love.
It was the eve of Christmas Eve, and it was late, and I opened the door to let the dog out, and just at that moment, someone must have been passing by. I didn't actually see them pass, but suddenly from behind the bushes, I heard a voice saying, "Hello." I wasn't quite sure whether this was someone that I should know, so I walked out to the gate to talk to him. He wasn't much older than my neighbor's son, and I saw him just as an older child. I asked him which school he went to, and he said he went to the school where I had been. And he said, "Oh, can I use your toilet?" So I said, yes, okay, of course you could use the toilet. So he came in, we chatted for a while, and everything was very pleasant, and then all of a sudden he jumped up and put his arms around me. Now, I immediately flung myself free and said, "No, you mustn't do that." He hit me across my face and sent me spinning. It was such a surprise. Up to that point, I really didn't have any fear that this was a sexual or a rape or anything. I was simply dealing with a little bit of a naughty child. He dropped his pants and he thrust his penis in my mouth. I was not compliant. I was not giving in any way. I was fighting. This child had turned into a monster in front of my eyes, and this monster was attacking me, and now I was fighting for dear life. So he must have kicked me so viciously, and then he left, and I think that he left me for dead, and he probably hoped I was.
In the middle of the night, I got woken up with the doorbell ringing and went to the door, and Laura was standing on my stoep with absolutely nothing on and her face covered with blood.
Cicely took me to the hospital, and there I saw myself in the mirror, and I turned around to see who was standing behind me, because that reflection that I saw couldn't possibly be me.
I didn't go into the house. I didn't want to go near the house. It was like the scene of the most unspeakable horror.
They had to drill holes into my head here and here, and they put an enormous iron cage in front of me here. I wanted to scream. what have you done to my face? What has happened? I expected them to put it back. In the most defiant voices, they told me, oh, but your jaw was so shattered we couldn't possibly have put it back, and what the heck did you expect?
Her face was like a parody of what it had been, and I'm talking about the face because that's the physical outside. If the face was like that, what happened to her soul?
For a long, long time, I have simply avoided looking at my face in the mirror. I look at the particular part that I'm dealing with. I never look at the big picture. I avoid it to such an extent that I'm not even sure now what I look like anymore. I never thought I was beautiful, but I was happy with the face I had. I worked hard to keep myself young and attractive, even through the dark years of my volatile marriage to Peter, a promising young filmmaker who became an alcoholic. And with hindsight, I should have left him by the side of the road many years ago. I'd had a musical upbringing and a brief and successful career on the stage, but that ended with children and the need to be a breadwinner. I hadn't wanted children, but a statement like that in the 1950s brought only condemnation. Still, I had 2 children, Michael, boisterous and headstrong, and Kathy, who was painfully shy as a child. And I made the decision to devote myself entirely to the task of being as good a mother as I possibly could be.
I remember just how we'd come home from school and Laura would be in the lounge with him. Remember, she loved her records, hey? She'd have her records playing and she'd be dancing in the lounge. Yeah, when we'd arrive home, she'd say, come on, girls, drop the bags, let's dance. And we'd have some lunch and she'd play piano tunes for us.
My children are very different, and I was surprised that it was Kathy who followed in her father's footsteps and became a filmmaker. She moved to Australia, and Michael stayed, married, and took up motorcar racing. I finally divorced Peter and lived alone in Hope Road. Some people may have regarded me as a bit of an eccentric, but I had some good friends.
I felt sorry for her because I always thought she was kind of lonely, but I don't think she was. I think she was just that kind of person that could be on her own.
She had very strong opinions. I didn't always agree with her. We used to have lots of arguments. She was intense. I think she was talented. I was very fond of her. She used to get on my nerves often, but I loved her.
I'd been living in Australia for 15 years and my filmmaking career was just beginning when Cecily phoned me. It was Christmas Eve and she said, something terrible's happened. Your mother's in hospital. I completely underestimated the extent of the trauma, and it took me a couple of months to put my life on hold and my stuff in storage and get over to Johannesburg, not knowing how long I'd be there. My mother was out of the hospital and the iron cage had been removed and she was putting on a brave face. Not long after my arrival, she let me film her doing a tour of the house. We were sizing each other up, not knowing how to deal with the situation. She wanted to appear as if she was coping, but the camera became a grim voyeur. My brother Michael and I had never been very close, and as adults we'd always lived on different continents. Even then he was suspicious of my motives for filming, but he covered it with his own brand of humour, like his impersonation of the South African police.
SAP? Yeah. Hey, has you got a license for that camera? Eh?
Or you got a license to drive that thing?
No, but you see this now. Eh? You see this? They come here from overseas. And they want to sort of make movies of everything. They don't know what's going on here. Huh? They think we's always pushing the blacks, eh?
For me, Johannesburg during those last years of apartheid was not a laughing matter. The fear I felt in Hope Road was intense and very real. The neighbours told me that 2 women alone in a house without security fences was asking for trouble, and Laura was afraid her attacker might return. So I hired an armed guard to watch the house day and night. But he couldn't protect Laura from the real tormentors in her midst.
In Laura's case, a certain amount of it was brought upon by herself. The fact that to invite a person into your house after midnight to come in and have a cup of tea or something like that, in the current situation, is not done.
We didn't know whether to blame Laura for being out at night and for inviting somebody into her house. One didn't know who to blame or how it had happened.
Yes, I did hear that she asked for it. I did.
I just saw her broken, like a human being was taken and spirit crushed. Hey, it was too terrible.
Not long after I arrived, my mother fell to pieces.
I just wanted to die. Life had ceased to be of any value whatsoever, and I just wanted to die. And so I was totally uncooperative in any kind of healing process.
I'd say she was shattered, absolutely shattered, because it was her face, which is a person's self, as it were, the self they present to the world. And as I said, very depressed, suicidal. If you go into the garden and you pick a beautiful rose and you put it into a vase, you might say, is that rose dead or alive? It looks alive, but in actual fact it's been cut off from its source. So it's alive, but it's dead in a way. And often after these traumatic things, or even a terrible illness, the person gets it into their mind that they're alive, but they're not alive. They've been killed in a way. It's that kind of, as I say, death imprint. And I think suicide goes a lot with that.
I went to the hospital to see her. That was the first time. She was beaten, knocked about.
The police delegated this whole thing to a retired female police officer. But she had the foresight to go to the school and to ask them for the school magazine. And she came back with this magazine, and I looked through it. There was a photograph of the rugby team, and when I saw it, I picked him out immediately. And I saw, that's him. It was the emotion of, I found him.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
I went to see the investigating officer who was handling the case, Jan van der Mescht. He told me that the suspect was overseas, that the boy's father had threatened to sue him for false accusation, and it was his word against my mother's. He gave me photocopies of some documents from the file and advised me to drop the case. My main concern was keeping Laura alive and getting her to Australia, so I took his advice. I had no idea how important the issue of getting justice was to become, and I was to bitterly regret that decision. It took 7 months and several face operations and suicide threats before I was able to convince Laura to come with me to Australia. I packed her belongings and sold the house, and she said goodbye to the world she had come to completely distrust.
And get me out of that awful, terrible hole. Yeah.
Wish me luck as you wave me goodbye.
My neighbours put on a wonderful farewell party for me, and I played the gracious guest. But despite it all, I felt angry and betrayed. It seemed as if the entire world was saying to me, you brought this on yourself. I just wanted to withdraw and have nothing to do with any of them. In Australia, I lived in a small flat in Sydney for several months, but I didn't cope well with my new circumstances, and my depression deepened. I stopped playing the piano and my creative spring dried up. I put on weight so that no man would ever look at me in that way again. I was having memory lapses and trouble with even simple words and phrases, and I really believed that my face was so disfigured that I looked like a monster.
Laura went into psychiatric care for 3 years and then moved into a small housing commission flat and became a virtual hermit. They called it post-traumatic stress, but for Laura, life was meaningless and she wanted nothing to do with the outside world. And time did not heal. Seeing my mother shut herself away for all those years, I felt as if I'd lost her and nothing I could do would bring her back. Finally, in desperation, I proposed going back to Johannesburg to try and get the case reopened. Laura was dubious at first, but she agreed. It was becoming clear that without some form of justice, she would never get over it. I hadn't been back since I'd taken Laura away after the attack, and I wasn't looking forward to it. My attitude coloured everything. All I could see was a city living behind razor wire and locked doors. To me, it was a city of fear. Even my mother's house in Hope Road had become just a brick wall. My first stop was to see Cecily, Laura's former neighbour and close friend.
Is it the societies, does it reflect the values of the guardians of our society that they didn't find the child? I don't know. Was it a whitey thing? Was it a policeman protecting a white child that could have been his son? Laura showed me a picture from the Highlands Boys High School magazine that somebody had given her, and she was asked to identify, and she identified what looked like one young man, and of course it's somebody that I happen to know. He was at school with my children. See, that the same age as my children, but apparently it turned out not to be him.
When I showed Cecily the photo and pointed to the boy, she actually said to my face that I must be mistaken because he looked such a nice boy, and she knew him. People don't realize how devastating it is to be disbelieved when you are so adamant, as I was about my attacker.
At Norwood Police Station, Superintendent John Miles was now in charge, and he and his assistant had been searching their archives for Laura's file for 3 days. The news was not good.
Now, confront, it must be destroyed.
This is the last hope?
Yeah, these two were the last. The file was, according to the investigating officer, submitted to the public prosecutor, declined to prosecute. And but it's been destroyed.
We've got to make assumptions, when we say what happened to the file, so we can't give you a direct answer to say.
It seemed very strange that the files before and after Laura's were there, but her case file, or docket as they called it, was missing. The previous investigating officer, Jan van der Mescht, had since retired from the police force, but John Miles rang him while I was in his office. I wasn't allowed to film the conversation, but Miles later repeated the information to me over the phone.
I spoke to him while you were here. He does remember interviewing an accused and taking the case to the public prosecutor for the decision.
That's right.
Yeah.
So. He called him a harder heart, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a difficult suspect.
difficult, that can mean anything. It can mean invasive, but difficult, not truthful.
But the suspect had admitted being in my mother's house, didn't he? He remembered that he was feeding dogs. Or
well, he mentioned that he was walking past and he was invited in and things like that. That he recalled immediately. I spoke to him. So yes, that's.
So.
And he wouldn't have that unless the accused had acknowledged that. If you see what I mean.
Yes. This information from Fundamesht was a great breakthrough, and I asked John Miles to set up a meeting for us. But when Fundamesht heard that I was back in town and making a film about the case, things changed. He didn't turn up for our arranged meeting, and he evaded me for 5 days. Finally, Fundamesht told me by phone that he was going on an extended hunting trip and didn't know when he'd be back. My time in Johannesburg was running out, and it was clear that I was not going to be able to meet him. I wanted to scream with frustration. It was at this point that I realised that without his cooperation and the original case docket, getting justice was going to be very difficult. And then, just days before I was due to leave Johannesburg, I met Charlene Smith. She is a high-profile journalist who was raped in 1999 and made her story front-page news. Her message for Laura was to be a turning point for me.
If you want the person to get caught, and if you want the person to go to jail, you have to prepare yourself for an unbelievably traumatic fight. You have to fight and fight and fight. You get frustrated about the fact that you're fighting with everyone. You have to fight with the police, you have to fight with the prosecutors, you have to fight with the medical officers, you have to fight with every single person. And in the end, for me, this was the worst thing that happened to me. And if I wanted justice, I had to fight. If I wanted him to stop doing it to another woman, I had to fight. But it's a difficult process. It's a difficult process, and you often want to give up because it's very traumatic.
Kathy came back feeling like she'd achieved very little. But the very fact that someone was prepared to believe me and to listen for the first time got me going again.
I made a tentative step, and I've joined the University of the Third Age, and there we have a group that is studying philosophy, and then there's a discussion group, and both of them I find very stimulating.
The program is called Seasons for Growth, and the name is relevant.
I'm learning slowly. I'm trying to get on with people.
You made any friends?
Yes, I've made some very good, I think I've made a few friends.
There was a slow awakening there that perhaps somebody else could be interested in my dark secret, my nightmare that I've been trying to sweep under the carpet, and I've spent years and years and years trying to forget it and to put it aside, and now here's an opportunity where perhaps you can draw some good out of it.
These are the African ways of honor to you.
Encouraged by Laura's tentative steps, and with Charlene Smith's words about the need to fight for justice still echoing in my head, I went back.
These are the African ways of honor to you.
The country had changed so much since I grew up here, and on this second trip I was feeling more optimistic. I made the decision to try and find something positive from what had happened to Laura, and to look at the country through new eyes. Even though the world around him had changed so dramatically, my brother Michael hadn't.
I've always been the Engelsman, the alien, the person that, who are you? You don't fit in with us. I didn't fit in with them, I don't fit in with this crowd. It means nothing to me. The new flag just looks like Winnie Mandela's underpants or something like that. I've got no idea how to relate to it or anything like that. This is a pump-action shotgun. Carries 12 rounds up in this tube here. I have two daughters, and the subject of rape is obviously one of those things that is on your mind the whole time. The guard here is me. I put up a very, very big, mean demeanor, and I carry a big shotgun. You can put it against your shoulder like this and shoot like that. But that is if you really want to actually aim specifically. This is our family's defense mechanism against this, because you're not going to get the police or any fellow citizens or anyone else to watch out for you.
I'm ready for this. Ready for action.
Michael had never told his daughters about what really happened to Laura. They always assumed their grandmother had deserted them for the good life in Australia.
Down, and then ready to shoot.
Michael's warnings made me realise that I was unprepared for the potential dangers of this city, and I should take some precautions. So I hired a personal bodyguard and driver.
I'm going to drive you, I'm going to look after you.
Yeah.
So whatever it is where you have to be. I know sometimes when you go to like Soweto, Alexander, so you need something to be protected. So normally I've got my firearm with me.
Okay. Moshe Dayan became my constant companion and friend and took me to places I would never have otherwise visited. He also suggested novel ways of dealing with stress.
How do I cook this?
No, don't cook it. You don't cook it.
You don't cook it? What do you
Just
do?
grate it, ne?
Grate it?
You
and
wash
then
your body.
You wash your body with
Yes, yeah. And vomit with it.
I vomit?
Yes.
Okay. Probably need some of that. Okay. That's going to be an interesting experience.
Under the new South African government, a unit had been established in Johannesburg to deal specifically with sexual assault and child rape cases. The head of the unit was Superintendent Andre Neertling, and he had some good news for me.
We are the investigative authority. We are not the prosecuting authority. But what we can do from our side is to reopen the case and look at those questions that you had, because if a case was withdrawn, it can be reopened at any time. And revisit all the evidence and things like that presented to the prosecutor, and see how far we get with regards to that, to also provide you people with some kind of closure, I suppose.
Andre assigned the case to Captain Arnold Boonstra and gave me permission to follow the investigation and to film it. Police work in Johannesburg is dangerous, and hundreds of police officers are killed each year in the line of duty. Arnold and his buddy Ferdy always worked together, and their main focus was the investigation of serial rapists and child rape.
That looks like a good, healthy breakfast there.
Yeah, it's great. That's why I'm so healthy.
There's definitely a lot of stress, especially long hours. Type of cases you work on sometimes catches up on you. I'm involved in more funny stuff, so see the worst, never see any good, so there's a bit of stress.
How do you deal with that?
I see a psychologist. You have to.
I found Arnold and Ferdy's world very stressful. It reminded me too much of the bad old days of the apartheid era, even though they were now looking for rapists, not political activists. But they wanted me to see the battleground they worked in.
Most of the people in South Africa are black, and just a small percentage are white. Around about 10% of us are white, and the rape graphs follow that almost completely. So Most women getting raped are black women getting raped by black men. However, you get white men who rape and you get white women who are raped. It isn't a racial issue at all. It's a societal issue of disrespect toward women and children.
Arnold arranged for me to meet with the elderly volunteer police reservist, Myra Carroll, who'd worked on Laura's case back in 1989. She'd done most of the legwork, including getting the photo from the school. She didn't remember many details of the case, and she was hesitant about which boy my mother had identified from the photo.
Could it be this one?
Yes, exactly.
Honestly?
Yes.
I don't remember that it does.
So why is it that you think you pointed to that one?
There.
She remembered immediately. As soon as you showed her, she said, "That's him."
I don't know, and that's why I was so hesitant, because really I don't remember, but isn't that strange that I should have done that? Everything was put in the docket and handed over. Definitely, that's I always do. I don't keep anything.
Would they have asked you to interview the suspect?
No.
We're going to see the previous investigating officer, Jan van der Mest. He's on pension now, and see what information he can give us about the whole case.
Finally, I was going to meet with Jan van der Mest. I wanted to find out why he'd evaded me on my previous visit, and whether he would tell Arnold what he had told the police superintendent, John Miles, a year ago while I was in his office, that he had interviewed a suspect who admitted being in my mother's house but denied the assault. Van der Mest agreed that I could attend the meeting and film it, so long as it was just the camera resting on my knee.
But I never said I interviewed a guy in this case, never. From the beginning, I denied any knowledge of somebody being arrested or interviewed in this matter.
You know, I was in his office when you spoke to John Miles. I was there and I heard you say this.
Saying what?
Saying this thing that you'd spoken to the suspect.
Hell, I never said that.
But I was
Never in my life.
Office there.
No, of course
I'm
not.
not
Do you
making
understand
that-
Afrikaans?
Yeah, I do.
Why should I lie to you? For what reason?
I don't know, I can't understand it. I just want to get the name of the guy that you spoke to.
I never interviewed anybody in this case, man. This I can guarantee you. And I never said this to John Miles.
You said to me when I came to see you in 1989, you said to me that the parents had threatened you. They'd threatened you with false accusation if you continued with this investigation. You'd spoken to the parents and that's what they said. And when I said at the time, how can you conduct an investigation? You just said, well, that's how it is.
It's possible, I can't remember.
So you could have spoken to the parents.
Oh, it's possible. It's possible, I can't remember exactly.
You can't remember where he lived or
No,
even
not at
one
all.
tiny bit of
Nothing,
information?
Nothing at all. I'm a total blank.
So do you think he's telling the truth?
Van der Mest, I don't know what to think.
My frustration at this point hit a high note, but I didn't get much support from Arnold. He wasn't interested in uncovering whether an ex-police officer was lying or not. He just wanted to track down some hard evidence.
Captain Werther speaking. I need to find out old fingerprints of 1988. Yeah, it's an old case of rape that was investigated.
Arnold told me that the fingerprints may take some time to track down, and I also had to face the reality of his daily workload. He had over 80 cases that he was currently investigating, including many of child and baby rape, and understandably these had to take precedence over my mother's case.
We've got 1,800 cases that we investigate at the moment, which is all. We cannot distinguish between our cases. These are all, it's not property crime, these are all assault on people. So we have to give equally attention to all of them. But I think by the end of November we should be able to at least give you a good answer in terms of where we stand.
Wherever I went, it was staring me in the face. The extent of rape in South Africa was horrific, and the statistics were almost beyond belief.
A woman is raped every 26 seconds. A South African woman, 1 in 2 South African women will be raped at least once in her lifetime. I deal with rape survivors who've been raped 3 times, which is really difficult. 75% of rape is gang rape. You're more likely to be raped by anything from 3 to 30 perpetrators than by a single individual. A very, very high rate of incest. We have a particular problem at the moment because our incidence of HIV is so high that there's a very high rate of virgin rape. There's a belief that if you rape a virgin, you can cleanse yourself of HIV. So we're seeing, last year we saw a doubling of child rape.
Charlene spends much of her time helping the survivors of sexual assault and their families. And it was at one of what she calls her survivor lunches that I met Glory and her twin daughters. The 2-year-old twins had been raped and sodomized by a man she thought of as a trusted friend who persuaded her to allow him to pick the twins up from preschool every day.
And he raped them repeatedly, maybe for 3 weeks. Every time, every day. Where? How?
You don't know.
I don't know. I wish I can know.
No, you don't want to know.
Did they tell you? Yeah, they tell. They even demonstrate, even the noises he was making that time when he was raping them. You know, they talk, they say it like it is.
Hi, Kathy. How are you? It's nice to see you again. Good to see you.
Glory was not a woman to let life get the better of her. Before her daughters were born, their father had flown the coop, so she employed a full-time housekeeper and nanny to look after the twins, and she kept her job as a flight attendant with South African Airways. Glory had been to a court hearing the previous day in relation to the rape of her twin daughters and was furious at the outcome. The perpetrator, who lived 4 doors down the street from her, had been released on bail.
I was so depressed I couldn't even have dinner. I had this terrible headache, and I think maybe it must have been nerves or what, because I couldn't just believe that they are remanding it to next year, February. It's 4 months. It's too much.
And this guy's still walking around free.
He was in a new suit, new shoes, new shirt, and he was so boastful and like, I don't know. He's still around. I saw him yesterday. This is dangerous, you know, it's like a virus, it's like something. We should stop this now.
The delays and problems with the police and justice system that Glory and I were experiencing were extremely common. But instead of just grumbling, Glory and her family took action. She poured all her rage into a petition to President Mbeki in the hope of drawing attention to our frustrations.
You know, we've got to put our feet down that they should do it. Send people out there to go and educate those people in all the languages, all the 11 official languages. It takes it like...
My letters back to Laura about my progress were starting to have an effect, and she was beginning to see the bigger picture.
If we are going to have a safer world for women, the first thing that we've got to do is the painful process of exposure, which is what I'm doing now. And that if women go on trying to hush it up and ignore it and pretend it doesn't happen, they are never going to address any kind of steps to stop it, and then it will just carry on.
Glory took me to the court hearing of a young 8-year-old girl who had been brutally raped and mutilated. The local community was staging a protest outside the court to highlight their frustrations with the justice system and to vocalise their rage.
This is taking its toll on the poor family.
Now is the time to take your AK and shoot the enemy.
If we find a perpetrator, somebody who's raping our children, we are not going to bring him here because we are wasting our time. We are going to kill him there and then. It will be tit for tat, butter for fat. We are tired. I sugar. No.
The perpetrator usually buys the investigating officer or whoever that handles the docket. That's what has been said, that they pay them the money and then all of a sudden the docket gets lost. And they know that once the docket is lost, everything, how are they going to proceed now? The ultimate end is that that man will walk out free because there's no evidence. The evidence that was there is no more.
I went to ask Andre if he had any clues as to why all the information relating to Laura's case seemed to be missing.
You know, things disappear, but not everything. You know, yes, dockets do disappear, especially if they're that old. And there's, in the meantime, there's a lot of things to do to improve our archive systems and that. But yeah, it happened from time to time, but not really that everything disappears. And we are looking into that at the moment to find out where these things disappear to.
The fingerprints in Laura's case still hadn't been traced, and the investigation was bogging down, and I started hassling Arnold for results.
Somebody somewhere is lying.
Have you thought of going to speak to either Superintendent Miles, John Miles, or...
No, that doesn't help. It's hearsay evidence. I need evidence, physical evidence that I can use now to link this suspect to the crime. You know, hearsay from John to this one to that one is not going to help me.
I'm just desperate.
I know that you are, and I feel with you, and I have sleepless nights about this.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should think, where have we gone wrong? What have we missed? You know, there's something missing here. There's a piece of the puzzle that's not here, and we can't seem to find it.
My frustrations with the slow pace and the obstacles in the police investigation were really getting me down, and I was desperate for signs of hope. The police told me about a playwright, Bongani Linda, working in Soweto, whose community theatre work on this issue was being performed in schools and prisons around the country to mainly male audiences.
Theatre has played a very important role in popular education right from the days of apartheid protest theatre, which was used as a tool to conscientize as well as a tool to inform international audiences of what was happening in the country.
You see, it's easy. Power. That's all it takes. It's a chapel.
My old lady, if you ever dare go to the police, this house will be a foundation. And you'll be signing a death warrant. Yebo, Noma?
I had a very, very beautiful girlfriend who was gang raped, and then she could not take it any longer. She committed suicide. I got very angry. I confronted one of the rapists. In that anger, I killed him. I was arrested, stayed for about 24 months on trial, but thanks God I was acquitted because charges were dropped against me. And then after that, I got very worried that what kind of a society is this? Because in fact, it just did not end then. Rape became a popular crime in our townships, and till today it's still like that. It's sky high. It's crime number one. We've got this anger, and the anger that we have is taken to the wrong people. It's taken to our sisters. And you know, for me, this makes me very angry because, I mean, I've experienced it. I used to love that woman. She was part of me. We shared the same breath. Today, she's no more. Because some, I'm sorry to say this, but fucking bastards, barbarians, yeah. I prefer not to talk about it really because it breaks my heart every time. But rape is a man's problem more than anything. It's a man's problem, and I'm worried because it's still fashionable.
I call upon the men who are here, as well as the boys, young men. Let us make this our struggle. The safety of our mothers, the safety of our sisters, the safety of our aunts, their welfare, their dignity is our business.
When a child is abused, I know it touches a very tender part of us.
Arnold still couldn't find the fingerprints, and Laura's case had stalled. He was also preoccupied with the 1,800 other sexual assault cases his unit was investigating. And I realised that if I wanted things to move faster, I would have to take action myself. I found a private investigator who agreed to help me for a fee.
Okay, I'll assist you in this regard as well.
Thank you. And you guys have got access to hidden cameras?
Yeah, I do have.
Yeah.
And a recorder for that matter. So we'll be able to record the audio and the video itself. Okay.
The private investigation company were very quick to deliver results. I gave them the name of the boy my mother had identified, which appeared on the school photograph. Within days, they were able to tell me where the suspect lived, that he owned 2 firearms, he was married and had recently had a baby son, and he owned a business with his brother.
Keep going straight here. Just go right.
It didn't take long to find his workplace.
So I found it, yeah.
But then I didn't know what to do next. The thought of going in was too overwhelming, and I felt completely out of my depth. Moshadan reminded me of the 2 guns the suspect owned and warned me to be careful. So I did a stakeout. It seemed to me now that my best option was to bite the bullet and confront the man my mother had identified with a hidden camera and find out what he had to say. But I needed to be sure that what I was proposing was both legal and ethical.
It's a strategic choice in many ways rather than a legal choice. I mean, I think legally you have the right to do it. Strategically, one would have to weigh up what would be the impact of you doing it. On the alleged rapist himself and whether you would silence him or open up the floodgates of his confession. I mean, we have no way of telling that. And B, on the police. I mean, would it annoy the police? Does that matter?
The lawyer also told me that if I wanted to use the video of the confrontation as possible evidence, I should not reveal my intentions to the police. The thought of going out and facing the man who had caused all this trauma terrified me, and I kept hoping there would be some other way. Glory suggested we go to the ANC Women's League, a powerful women's lobby group. She believed that if we could speak to Nelson Mandela, we may be able to get some action for her twins and for my mother.
She would like to have an audience, the Leadership Here Women's League. Like you are going to, on her behalf, going to confront the perpetrator. I think she's going to get a relief from that. Yeah, she'll be now able to let go now. Because why is she still holding on is that this person was not brought to book. That's why she is still holding on to this pain. But once she knows that it's being taken care of now, she'll be able to let go now. And I wish you all the luck. I wish for her sake.
They're scared, Kathy. They're scared. They feel safe when the butler doors are locked. The alarm, even the alarm, they always remind us to switch the alarm on.
Watching the twins playing with locks and bolts was heartbreaking. The man who had abused them lived just down the road, and Glory believed they were in real danger. I completely understood her outrage at the system that had allowed him out on bail, and why so many people felt the need to voice their anger at the extent of sexual violence.
What do you think about this child abuse, Abuti?
Glory finally collected over 10,000 signatures for her petition and presented it to the President's office in Pretoria. But she wasn't stopping there. She asked me to help her write letters to the Justice Minister and the Minister for Safety and Security.
The bail was granted despite the fact that I informed the court of the danger he poses to my twins and my nanny.
I want the president to stop giving these people bail. Okay. To me, it's a major thing. That's a big thing.
Arnold rang me to say that he was going out to interview the suspect within a couple of days. Fear and anxiety were holding me back from doing what I knew I had to do: confront the man my mother had identified. It was now or never. That morning I awoke with a sick feeling in my stomach, but I'd come this far, and this time I had to see it through. I still didn't know if I'd be in any danger, and there was that awful nagging doubt. What if it was the wrong guy?
I could just wear it over my shoulder like that.
Or you could put it right over your head.
This way I can get it off if I need to. Or
Okay, yeah, sure. If you needed to run, I suppose, yeah.
So if I'm talking to you, is that getting a good picture?
Well, as you can see there on the screen, you can see the picture there. That's me there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
just
basically
how
the
I
picture.
angle this thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be the key.
Yeah, in any direction you want to, basically.
Because once I start this, what I'm doing, I'm not going to be thinking about this because I'm going to be thinking about the person I'm talking to. So
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to ask you something. It's a personal matter. Okay. I just wanted to ask you if you've ever thought about that woman that you assaulted in Orange Grove in 1988.
Assaulted?
Yeah.
Who are you talking about?
The woman that you assaulted in Hope Road, Orange Grove in 1988. That was my mother.
Sorry? Who's your mother?
My mother lived in Hope Road, Orange Grove, and this is, she's identified you from a school photograph. You went to Highlands North School.
So if you don't mind me asking, assaulted?
Yeah.
In what way?
Sexually assaulted.
Oh, do me a favour. Definitely not.
Look, I can definitely help you. The police are about to come and question you.
What are you talking about?
There's a lot of evidence.
Who's your mother?
My mother was the woman that was in that house that you went into that night.
I don't know, and I don't know your mother from Boris. You have my word. In the wildest dreams, your mother's making a mistake. And you have
need to tell her that.
I swear to you on my son's
And if you
life.
do tell her that and she believes you, then she will
Ma'am,
withdraw.
I tell you, she can come, and I swear to you on my mother's life, my son's life, on everybody's life, my family's life. I don't know what she's talking about. I swear to you.
Do you want
and I'd like to phone my father and ask him if you don't mind to come with me. Go upstairs with me. I swear to you, I don't know what she's talking about. Hold on, but listen to me. Dad does not. No, my dad's getting upset because he knows that it's not me. Dad?
Yeah, but
Dad?
he has to verify that what he told the police.
Hold on. They say that you told the police that I agreed that I was in Hope Street.
But that you didn't assault my mother.
No. Okay, can you bring a police number? Okay, Dad, I'll phone you back just now, okay? Okay, but listen to me. Don't start shouting and screaming. Please, Dad. Please, Dad, listen to me. Don't start screaming and shouting, please. Please, just speak to my father, because my dad's really upset now also about this. There's no ways on this planet. Sorry.
Did you speak to the police? My
Please,
name's Kathy.
Dad, just tell him, please. Is he
Kathy
upset?
Hinkle.
I don't know what you're
Hinkle. I've offered to help your son.
Man, hold on.
Because
Just
my
on,
mother
give me
has
five, please,
identified him
No. Do me a favour. This
from
is
a
wrong.
photograph.
No, this is wrong. No, this lady says that I raped her mother in 1988 in Hope Street.
Sorry, I don't want to have your father shouting at me like that. Listen, if you will meet me down the street, we can discuss how I can help you.
His father's gone ballistic. I can well imagine it. Because his father probably thought, my God, thank God, I got away with it, and he's been, and now to be suddenly confronted with this, I'm sure he would go ballistic. I can well imagine.
She's making a mistake. I'm telling you that now. You have my word. If you don't mind me asking, what was I wearing? Supposedly wearing. I don't know what she's talking about. I swear to you.
She knows what you're wearing. She says she was with you for a long time.
She's making. No. She's making a mistake. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
He says you shouldn't talk to me.
And I understand why, man, because
the thing is that one of
ma'am,
these
she can
assaults really sticks, and that's why I thought, if you could talk to my
I'd
mother.
like, in fact, your mother's more than welcome to come out and she can face me face to face and then tell me, because I promise you have my word. Okay, I've got nothing to hide.
I feel devastated because there doesn't seem to be any resolution now. He's just got to a point of denying. Where are you going to go from there? He's just going to go on denying and denying.
The confrontation left me shaken and confused. I realised how naive I'd been to hope that he would confess. And yet the way he reacted just didn't make any sense. He didn't ask even the most basic questions other than, how did you find me? And what was I wearing? And why did he immediately go and ring his father? I desperately needed to debrief and went back to the psychiatrist Laura had seen after the attack.
I'd say that even getting to speak to his family, getting to speak to him, has done a lot to frighten him very badly. More than, maybe even more than coming in front of the police and everything. I think you've got a lot of justice by going there. A lot of justice done, because you've terrified him. He's not going to be able to live with himself. He knows that somebody knows who he is. He knows that you know. He knows that you're going back to Australia and people know. He's not going to be able to live with himself as easily as maybe he's lived with himself, which he probably hasn't managed easily.
When I told Arnold what I'd done, he didn't object, and in fact he took a copy of the video of the confrontation as part of his evidence. The suspect responded by hiring a lawyer and refused further contact with me. I had to accept that our legal case was weak. It was his word against Laura's. Arnold told me he'd been out to interview the suspect and he'd come up with an alibi. When I next saw Arnold, he'd been to Cape Town to check it out.
The hotel that they claim to have stayed in has subsequently closed down. The one wing's been completely broken down and the other one is standing empty. So there was no verification of his alibi. It's his word and those of his witnesses.
So hard, because my mother is so certain that it was this guy. I just have to keep believing that.
I tried, and I'm not giving up. It's bad to just give up. Somewhere along the line, something should happen.
Glory's letters and petition had hit the mark, and she was getting attention from officials high up in the system. The South African government was acknowledging the extent of the crisis and making sexual assault a priority area.
My letters are everywhere. In all the government department, people keep on saying, but who is this Glory Lekhodi? Some are on the corridors with the fires. They say, I should contact Glory Lekhodi. I should go see this. It's amazing. I can see a light. There is a light there at the end of the tunnel. It's shining brightly. You know, they all involved, they all concerned. They telling me that over the telephone when they come here. I want to help women and children because I think there's a big gap there. People are there struggling, and I realize that people, you know, get tired when they busy with their cases and something goes wrong. They just say, I'm just going to leave it at that, because, you know, it's so tiring. We both have experienced this thing. You know, you can't just go on without any light. So people give up most of the time. So I want to encourage people not to give up.
Christmas was fast approaching and I needed to go home. But there were still some things that I wanted to resolve, so I went back to Hope Road. A big part of the trauma for Laura has been this thing of not being believed. She was really hurt that you, one of her closest friends, didn't believe her when she identified her attacker. I don't want you to feel terrible.
You can't help it. I mean, you can. You know, Laura, I'm sorry.
Cecily admitted that she'd dismissed Laura's identification of the suspect as wrong because she knew the boy.
What did I know about them? Their mother was a woman who... She was one of the mothers who used to kiss her children goodnight, still in Standard 5. When, you know, she used to kiss her boys goodnight. That's how I knew them. He was such a nice boy. Such a nice boy. Nice boys don't do that.
After she'd moved to Australia, Laura had very little contact with her son and granddaughters, and the attack was a taboo subject that was like a barrier between them. She felt Michael still blamed her.
I blamed her, not a chance.
We did. You said it was her fault for letting him in the house.
That's not blaming somebody.
That's how it felt to her.
No, well, that's not blaming somebody. What do you say to the person? You say, there is a vicious lion. You go into the lion park. You say, those lions are man-eaters. Do not get out of your car.
He didn't look like a vicious lion. He looked like a handsome, presentable young man. I mean, what does he think these people look like? That they're walking around with a label on their back that says rapist? I mean, does he think that I'm so unintelligent that I would let a person into the house who was dicey? But Michael has always thought this, and he still does.
Yeah, well, if I'm going to speak to Laura, I will do it in front of her and not in front of this thing. This is bullshit, this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You keep on pointing your finger at me like I'm the big bad ogre and I just am so mean to everybody because I don't have this magical way of showing feelings and expressing myself and doing the big huggy thing with people. It doesn't work. I know what I feel. Now, sure, that was tough. I don't think I'd want to go through that.
When you say, why did you do that?
That's not blame.
That is a blame.
It's not blame. That's a question.
It implies a blame.
Right, well, then that's it.
No, hang on, don't go.
No. If you're going to harp on something like that and you're going to pick it and say, keep on saying that I was blaming Laura, you can forget this right now because I did not blame anybody. Yeah, I never realized that one little statement like that could cause Mom to have so much trauma. Now, do you think I could tie this together? Do you think I saw the connection there? I didn't see it. I know that within my heart I have the right intentions. I would like to help, but I don't know how. You've actually got me into a place where I'm very, very. I don't want to put this. I'm sorry, and I really hope that this can make it better. That's all I can say.
Michael, thank you. I never got to meet Nelson Mandela, but in one of life's strange ironies, my brother Michael did. Mr. Mandela came to his workplace to give his blessing to their racing team heading for Europe. And as I watched him through jealous eyes, I was reminded that life doesn't always work out the way you want it to. The South African police had always been the butt of Michael's jokes, so meeting the head of the Sexual Offences Unit was a bit of a challenge for him. But when he saw the extent and detail of the new investigation, even he had to admit that perhaps things were changing in the new South Africa.
We fully investigated, and this is the best product that we can give to the prosecutor, and hopefully that will be enough to get at least a court case going.
For the first time, Michael glimpsed the possibility of some justice, and he agreed to take over the handling of the case.
Okay, good luck with that in the case.
Okay.
Thanks again,
Okay.
very, very much. It's been a great meeting you.
Andre, travel safe.
Super,
okay,
yeah.
Nice meeting you.
I'd just like you to meet my brother, Michael.
Hi, pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you too.
This is Arnold Boonstra. My brother will still be here, he lives here, so if there's anything further...
I'll keep in contact with him. As soon as I hear anything from the DPP, I'll give him a call.
Yeah.
Right, well, enjoy it.
Thanks for everything, eh?
It's a pleasure.
Okay, cheers.
Solid.
Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him.
Michael did finally tell his daughters the truth about Laura.
To our Nana, I learned so much about you over these past few days and weeks. I was deeply hurt by the events that happened to you before you left for Australia, and I'm praying that your wounds will be healed by the love and efforts of your children and us grandchildren.
The last time I met you, I was only 3. It is so nice to know I do have a grandmother, and the news that I heard about you was heartbreaking.
I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and hope that you recover fully from what happened. Well, I will try to write. Love, Mike.
I know what it is. And she is being very optimistic. She can't be. She's joking. She's joking. Do you think I'm going to fit into it? God,
What is it, Laura?
Because it's a bathing costume. She remembers me walking around in my bathing costume because it was always so hot. The very fact that they opened the case, the very fact that they've investigated him, the fact that he knows he's being investigated, and he knows that I still know and I am still convinced. And he knows now that he has not fooled me, and he has not fooled you, and he's also battling now to come to terms as to whether he's going to be able to fool the police.
Do you want them to go forward and try and get a court hearing and if necessary, go and testify?
I'd love it. I'd love it. I think that he should be punished. It would be absolutely marvellous if legally it could happen. I'm not pinning all my hopes on it.
Hello?
Michael, it's Laura.
Well, hello, how are you?
I'm just phoning to say thank you for the Christmas gifts and the messages that you sent. They were wonderful.
Oh, that's okay.
Michael's apology enabled me to forgive him, because although I could understand where he was coming from, I still needed him to apologize for me to fully forgive him. And I have found from experience that forgiveness is a double blessing. It helps the forgiven and the forgiving. And it sets you free. But I'm afraid I can never forgive the attacker, because if I do that, then I am condoning what he did, and I can never condone what he did. I still get depressed sometimes and angry that my attacker has not yet been brought to justice. But I've come out of my isolation and I'm renewing my faith in human nature.
2 exercises so far. Third one, you're going to come down.
Do you think I'm going to make it? Do you think I'll ever get there?
If you keep on doing that, you'll probably take off, I think.
Yeah, well, I want to take off. I want to take off the weight.
Oh, well, yeah.